My parents lied about being broke to avoid helping me, while they spent $50,000 on my sister's modeling career, which failed. Then they demanded a loan when I made it big, so I gave them a lesson they will never forget. Hey Reddit, I need to get this off my chest because what happened with my family is so completely fucked up that I'm still processing it months later. This is going to be long, but trust me, it gets wild. I 31 female with a younger sister Maya, 26 female. From the moment Maya took her first breath, it was crystal clear that she was the golden child, and I was just background noise. I'm not being dramatic here. My parents, especially my mom, were absolutely obsessed with Maya's looks from day one. Maya was one of those kids who got stopped on the street by strangers, telling my parents she should be a model. Oh my god, she's gorgeous. Have you considered getting her into pageants? Mom ate that shit up like it was her oxygen. She'd beam and say things like, well, people do tell us that a lot, while I stood there invisible. Don't get me wrong, I loved Maya when we were little. But watching your parents' eyes light up every time someone complimented your sister's appearance, while your straight A report card got a distracted, "That's nice, honey," does something to you. When I turned 18 and was getting ready for college, that's when the real betrayal happened. I had busted my ass through high school. 3.9 GPA, varsity track, volunteer work, the whole deal. I got into a solid state university for computer science. I'd always been the tech kid, building computers, fixing everyone's phones, staying up until 3 a.m. learning coding languages for fun. I needed about $15,000 to cover what my financial aid and part-time job at Radio Shack couldn't handle. Not a fortune, but real money for our family. So I sat my parents down in our living room one evening after dinner. I need to talk to you guys about college expenses, I said, spreading out all my financial aid paperwork on the coffee table. Mom and Dad exchanged this look. You know, that married couple telepathic communication thing. Sweetheart, Mom said, her voice taking on that overly gentle tone people use when they're about to crush your dreams. We've been meaning to talk to you about this. My stomach dropped. Dad cleared his throat like he was about to deliver a eulogy. We wish we could help you, kiddo. We really do. But money is incredibly tight right now. I've been having some issues at work. They're talking about layoffs. We're barely keeping our heads above water as it is. We've looked at our finances from every possible angle, Mom added, shaking her head sadly. There's just nothing we can spare. But you're so smart, honey. You'll figure out a way to make it work. You always do. I remember staring at them, feeling this weird mix of disappointment and guilt. Guilty for even asking when they were supposedly struggling so hard. Are you sure there's nothing? I pressed. Even just a few thousand would help. I could pay you back after graduation. Dad shook his head firmly. I'm sorry, but we literally cannot afford it. We're living paycheck to paycheck right now. I believed them completely. Why wouldn't I? These were my parents. So I did what I had to do. I took out additional private loans at fucking awful interest rates. I picked up a second job at a campus coffee shop, working 25 hours a week on top of my full course load. I lived off ramen noodles, peanut butter sandwiches, and whatever free food I could find at campus events. My freshman year roommate used to joke that I was like a homeless person who happened to have a dorm room. I wore the same 5 outfits constantly, never went out with friends, and spent every weekend working instead of having the typical college experience. But I made it work. Graduated with $58,000 in student debt. But I had my degree. Here's where this story turns into a fucking nightmare. About 6 months into my freshman year, I came home for Christmas break to find our house transformed. The finished basement had been converted into what looked like a professional photography studio. Expensive lighting equipment everywhere, rolls of colored backdrop paper, professional-grade cameras mounted on tripods. Maya was posing in front of a white backdrop, wearing designer clothes I'd never seen before, while some photographer dude directed her. Beautiful, Maya! Now give me that sultry look over your shoulder. I stood on the stairs watching this surreal scene unfold. What's all this? I asked Mom when the photo session wrapped up. Her face lit up like she'd won the lottery. Maya got discovered at the mall. This talent scout approached her at the food court and said she has real potential. We've signed with a modeling agency. I looked around at all the expensive equipment. This setup must have cost a fortune. I thought you guys were broke? Mom waved her hand dismissively, suddenly very interested in organizing some papers. Oh, this is different. This is an investment in Maya's future. The agency said she has incredible potential. We took out a small loan, but it'll pay for itself once she starts booking real jobs. A small loan. Right. Dad came downstairs carrying another piece of lighting equipment. The agent says Maya could be the next big thing. She's got that special something, you know? This could change everything for our family. Over the next 3 years, every time I came home, there was some new expensive investment in Maya's career. Professional headshots that cost $2,000. A trip to New York for casting calls. Another $3,000 for flights, hotels, and proper wardrobe. Acting classes because the agent said she needed to be well-rounded. $5,000. A personal trainer and nutritionist because she had to maintain peak physical condition. $8,000 per year. Every single time I'd mention my student loans or how I was living on mac and cheese for the 5th night in a row, I'd get the exact same response. We're still struggling financially, honey, but Maya's career is really starting to take off. Once she makes it big, she'll be able to help all of us. The worst part? Maya started believing her own hype. She'd talk about her craft and her brand like she was already a household name. She'd post these pretentious quotes on social media about the sacrifices artists make for their art. Meanwhile, I was working at a shitty campus coffee shop at 6 a.m. before classes, smelling like espresso and exhaustion. The truth came out during my senior year in the most devastating way possible. I was home for spring break, exhausted from job hunting and trying to finish my thesis project. Maya was getting ready for another big opportunity, this time an audition in Los Angeles that would definitely lead to her breakthrough. Mom was in Maya's room helping her pack designer outfits into expensive Louis Vuitton luggage while discussing hotel reservations. The agency specifically recommended the Beverly Hills Hotel, Mom was saying, folding what looked like a $500 dress. It's $800 a night, but Maya needs to stay somewhere that matches her image. First impressions matter in this business. I was walking past Maya's room when I heard this, and literally stopped dead. $800 a night, I said, standing in the doorway. For how many nights? Just 4 nights, Dad said, appearing behind me with Maya's portfolio case. Plus first-class flights, car service, and meals at the right restaurants. The agent says she needs to be seen at the places where industry people go. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. How much is this trip going to cost total? Dad shrugged like we were talking about buying groceries. Around $6,000. But it's worth it if she books this campaign. It could be the one that launches everything. Something inside me snapped. Are you fucking kidding me right now? I exploded. Mom looked shocked. Language, young lady. No, fuck my language. You told me you couldn't help with my college because you were broke, but you can drop $6,000 on a long-shot audition? That's completely different, Mom said, getting that defensive tone she always used when caught in her bullshit. Maya's career requires these investments. This is about building her future. Her future? What about my future? My voice was getting higher and shakier. Do you have any idea what I've been going through these past 4 years? Dad stepped in with his usual dismissive bullshit. You're in college, you're doing fine. Maya's window of opportunity won't last forever. How much? I demanded. How much have you spent on her career total? They exchanged glances again. Same guilty look from 4 years ago. I don't see how that's relevant, Dad said. Humor me. After 20 minutes of pulling teeth, the truth came out. Over 4 years, they had spent approximately $52,000 on Maya's modeling career. $52,000 fucking dollars. I had to sit down. I actually couldn't stay standing when I heard that number. That's more than 3 times what I asked you for college, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You lied to me. You looked me in the eyes and told me you were broke. Mom started crying immediately. We never lied. We were financially stretched because we were investing everything in Maya's future. She's going to be famous, and then she'll be able to help everyone. And what if she doesn't make it? The look on their faces told me that scenario had never seriously crossed their minds. Maya, who had been quiet during this whole exchange, finally spoke up. I am going to make it. Some people just can't see the big picture. I looked at her, really looked at her, standing there in her designer clothes, holding her $300 headshots, completely oblivious to the damage her dreams had caused. Have you booked any major jobs yet? I asked. Any national campaigns? Magazine covers? Anything that's paid more than a few $100s? Her face flushed red. Success doesn't happen overnight. I'm building my portfolio, making connections. It's been 4 years, Maya. 4 years and $52,000. That night, I lay in my childhood bed looking at the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd put on the ceiling when I was 10, and I made a decision. I was done with this family. Done trying to earn their love and respect. Done being the afterthought. I graduated 3 weeks later. My parents came to the ceremony, but spent most of it talking about Maya's upcoming trip to LA instead of celebrating my accomplishment. That summer, I landed a job at a tech startup in Austin. The company was small but innovative, doing some cutting-edge work in cybersecurity. I was good at it. Really fucking good. I'd always had a natural talent for seeing patterns in code, understanding system vulnerabilities, building elegant solutions to complex problems. More importantly, I was motivated. All those years of watching my parents prioritize Maya's pipe dreams over my education had given me a hunger that nothing could satisfy except absolute success. I worked 70-hour weeks. I lived in a shitty studio apartment and drove a 12-year-old Honda Civic, but I poured every extra penny into paying off my loans and investing in the stock market. While Maya was posting Instagram photos of herself at fancy restaurants, funded by our parents, I was teaching myself new programming languages and taking on freelance projects. Within 2 years, I'd been promoted to senior developer. 6 months later, lead developer. By year 3, I was the chief technology officer of a company that was starting to get serious attention from major players in the industry. Maya, meanwhile, was still living at home, still going to auditions, still posting about her journey and her process, while our parents continued to fund her lifestyle. The startup got acquired when I was 28. My stock options were worth $2.8 million after taxes. Suddenly, I was wealthy. Like genuinely wealthy. I kept it quiet at first. Paid off my remaining student loans, bought a beautiful house in a great neighborhood, started investing wisely. I was finally financially secure for the first time in my adult life, and it felt incredible. But word spread through the family eventually. My cousin posted something on Facebook about my new house, and suddenly everyone knew I'd done well for myself. I should have seen it coming from a mile away. "Hi, sweetheart," Mom said when she called, using that overly sweet tone that meant she wanted something big. "How are you doing in that gorgeous new house of yours?" "I'm fine, Mom. What do you need?" A pause. "Well, your father and I were hoping we could come over for dinner this weekend. We'd love to see your place, and we have something important we'd like to discuss with you." I knew. I fucking knew what was coming. They showed up that Saturday evening with Maya in tow, clearly intending to use her as emotional leverage. I'd made a nice dinner. Salmon, roasted vegetables, good wine. Because despite everything, these were still my parents. We made small talk through dinner. Maya talked about her latest project, a local photographer who wanted to do a creative collaboration with her. My parents asked surface-level questions about my house and job. Then, as I was clearing the dessert plates, Dad cleared his throat. "Honey, we need to ask you for a favor. A significant favor." I set down the plates and looked at all 3 of them. "Let me guess. Money." Mom jumped in quickly. "It's a loan. We fully intend to pay you back." "How much?" $50,000, Dad said. The number hit me like a physical blow. The exact amount they'd wasted on Maya's fantasy career. "We know it sounds like a lot," Mom continued, "but we're really struggling right now. The mortgage is behind, we have credit card debt, and Maya's transitioning her career focus to influencer marketing. She needs startup capital for a new social media campaign that could really take off." I stared at them. Influencer marketing. "It's the future of the industry," Maya said defensively. "Traditional modeling is evolving. I'm pivoting to leverage my existing brand into the digital space." "What existing brand? You've never had a successful campaign?" Her face flushed. "I have over 8,000 followers on Instagram." "Maya, people with 8,000 followers work at Starbucks." Dad jumped in before Maya could respond. "Look, we know you're doing incredibly well now. 50,000 would be nothing to you. We're family. We're supposed to help each other out. Like you helped me out with college?" Mom's face crumpled. "That was different. We didn't have the money then. Because you were spending it on Maya. That was an investment." Dad's voice was rising. "We believed in Maya's potential. And you didn't believe in mine?" Silence. The answer was written all over their faces. I looked at all 3 of them sitting in my dining room. The dining room in the house I'd bought with money I'd earned through the education I'd struggled to pay for, while they spent a fortune on Maya's delusions. "I'll make you a deal," I said finally. Their faces lit up with hope. "I'll give you the 50,000. Not a loan. A gift." "Oh, sweetheart, thank you." Mom started crying with relief. "But I have conditions." The hope on their faces flickered. "What kind of conditions?" Dad asked suspiciously. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app. "First, I want you to admit on record that you lied to me about being broke when I needed help with college. I want you to acknowledge that you chose to spend that money on Maya's career instead." Dead silence. "That's ridiculous," Dad finally said. "Why would we do that?" "Because it's the truth, and because those are my terms." I turned to Maya. "Second, I want you to admit that your modeling career has been a failure, and that our parents wasted their money funding it." Maya's jaw dropped. "I'm not saying that. My career isn't over? Then I'm not giving you any money. This is insane, Mom said. We're family. Exactly. Family tells each other the truth. Family doesn't lie and manipulate. Family doesn't play favorites and sacrifice one child's future for another's fantasy. I stood up from the table. You have until the end of the evening to decide. Either you acknowledge what you did to me, or you leave empty-handed. They tried everything over the next 2 hours. Guilt trips about how I was punishing them for mistakes they'd made with the best intentions. Emotional manipulation about family loyalty and forgiveness. Maya actually started sobbing, saying I was trying to humiliate her and destroy her self-esteem. I'm not trying to humiliate anyone, I said calmly. I'm asking for honesty. The same honesty I deserved when I was 18 and desperately needed help. Dad tried to negotiate. What if we just acknowledge that maybe we made some errors in judgment? Can't we move forward without all this blame? Number, I want you to admit that you lied to me. I want you to admit that you prioritized Maya over me for years. I want you to admit that Maya's career has been a failure. In the end, they refused. Called me bitter, vindictive, cruel. Dad said I was holding grudges and needed to grow up and let go of the past. Mom accused me of trying to tear the family apart and being jealous of Maya's opportunities. They left angry, slamming my front door hard enough to rattle the windows. I thought that would be the end of it. I was so fucking wrong. About a week later, Maya launched what can only be described as a full-scale social media assault against me. She crafted a series of Facebook and Instagram posts painting herself as the victim of a cruel, money-obsessed sister who had abandoned the family in their time of need. The posts were carefully designed to make me look like a heartless monster who cared more about revenge than family. It's so painful when someone you love becomes so consumed with bitterness that they lose sight of what really matters, she wrote in one post. My sister has been blessed with financial success, but instead of using it to help family, she'd rather punish us for perceived slights from years ago. I'm heartbroken. She didn't mention the $52,000. Didn't mention the lies about being broke. Just focused on how I had plenty of money, but refused to help my struggling parents out of pure spite. The response was immediate and brutal. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years came out of the woodwork to tell me I should be ashamed of myself. My cousin Sarah sent me a long text about how family should come before pride. My aunt called my mother crying about how disappointed she was in me. That's when I decided I'd had enough of everyone's bullshit. I spent 2 days crafting a Facebook post that laid out the entire situation in excruciating detail. I included screenshots of my old student loan statements showing the crushing debt I'd taken on. I found photos that Mom had posted over the years of Maya's various expensive photo shoots, portfolio sessions, and career development trips. I calculated and documented approximately how much I estimated they'd spent on Maya's failed career. The post read, I've been seeing some posts about how I'm supposedly a terrible daughter and sister for not helping my family financially. I think it's time people knew the whole story. When I was 18 and needed $15,000 for college, my parents told me they were broke and couldn't help. I believed them. I took out high-interest private loans, worked multiple jobs, and lived on ramen noodles for 4 years to get my computer science degree. During those exact same 4 years, my parents spent approximately $52,000 on my sister's modeling career, professional photographers, portfolio development, trips to casting calls in New York and LA, acting classes, personal trainers, nutritionists, designer clothes, and expensive hotel stays. They weren't broke. They made a deliberate choice about where to invest their money, and it wasn't in my education. My sister's modeling career, after 4 years and $52,000 in investment, has produced no major bookings, no significant income, and no realistic prospects for future success. She is now 26 and living at home, while our parents continue to fund her lifestyle. Now that I'm financially successful, thanks to that degree I struggled and sacrificed to pay for, they want a $50,000 loan to pay off the debts they accumulated, funding my sister's fantasy, and to finance her next career attempt as an influencer. I offered to give them the money as a gift, not a loan, if they would simply acknowledge the truth about what happened when I needed help with college. They refused. I'm not obligated to fund the lifestyle choices of people who lied to me and prioritized my sister's pipe dreams over my future. Family loyalty works both ways, and it starts with honesty and respect. For those telling me I should just help family, I'd ask you this. Where was that family loyalty when I was working 25 hours a week while carrying a full course load just to afford textbooks? I hit post and waited. The post exploded within hours. Family members, family friends, people I'd gone to high school with, everyone was reading it, sharing it, commenting on it. The response was split, but not evenly. About 70% of the comments were supportive, from people who either remembered the obvious favoritism from years past or were just appalled at the financial deception. My cousin Jake, who I'd always been close with, commented, "I remember thinking it was fucked up that you were working 2 jobs in college while Maya got professional photo shoots. I offered to loan you money for books sophomore year, and you were too proud to take it. This explains so much." My uncle posted, "I always wondered how your parents could afford all those trips to New York for Maya, but couldn't help with your education. Now I know they could afford it. They just chose not to." But the other 30% of responses were brutal. My parents' friends, some of Maya's supporters, and relatives who bought into the family should help family narrative called me everything from petty to psychopathic. The most supportive comment came from an unexpected source. My Aunt Carol, Mom's sister, who had always been quiet about family drama. "I was there," she wrote. "I remember asking my sister why she couldn't help with college costs, and she told me they had spent their savings on Maya's career. She said they hoped Maya would make it big and be able to help everyone later. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking this didn't happen exactly the way you're describing it." That comment changed everything. Other family members started sharing their own memories and observations. The narrative began to shift as people realized the favoritism hadn't been subtle. It had been blatant and damaging. As public opinion turned against them, my parents panicked. Mom called me sobbing. "How could you air our family's private business like this? You've humiliated us in front of everyone we know. You humiliated yourselves when you chose to lie to your own daughter for 4 years. We never meant to hurt you. We were just trying to support Maya's dreams. At my expense." Literally. Dad tried a different approach, showing up at my office, my fucking workplace, to have a conversation. Security had to escort him out when he started yelling in the lobby about ungrateful children and family loyalty. Maya, meanwhile, posted a long defensive response trying to justify the $52,000 in expenses as necessary career investments, and claiming I was rewriting history to make myself look like a victim. She said she was going to prove everyone wrong by making it big in influencer marketing. But the damage was done. Too many people had witnessed the favoritism over the years. Too many relatives had their own memories of my parents' financial choices. The truth was out there, and no amount of spin could put it back in the box. The social media drama was just the beginning. Within months, the real financial consequences started hitting. It turned out my parents' situation was even worse than they'd admitted. They hadn't just spent $52,000 on Maya's career. They'd gone into massive debt to fund it. Credit cards maxed out, a second mortgage on the house, a loan against Dad's 401k, even a personal loan from Mom's brother that had been straining that relationship for years. They'd been banking on Maya's success to solve their financial problems. When that didn't materialize, I was supposed to be their bailout plan. When I refused to play along, they had no backup strategy. Dad had to take early retirement at 59 and find part-time work at a hardware store. Mom went back to work as a substitute teacher after 8 years out of the workforce. Within 8 months, they'd lost their house and had to move into a small rental apartment. Maya, unable to face the reality that her modeling dreams were over and unwilling to get a regular job, moved to Las Vegas to try to make it as a showgirl or casino entertainer. Last I heard through family gossip, she was working at a restaurant in one of the casinos and still posting occasionally about her entertainment career and building her brand. The whole situation created permanent rifts in our extended family. Some relatives cut off contact with my parents entirely, disgusted by the favoritism and financial manipulation they'd finally learned about. Others thought I was being too harsh and should have just helped despite everything. Family gatherings became impossible. Half the family would invite me, the other half would invite my parents. Eventually, we all just stopped trying to coordinate anything. The most meaningful response came from my grandmother, Dad's mother. She'd stayed out of the drama for months, but finally called me with her perspective. "I've been watching this family tear itself apart," she said, "and I need you to know that I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Your parents made their choices, and you're not responsible for fixing the consequences." Then she told me something that made me cry. "Your grandfather left me some money when he passed away. I was planning to leave it to your father in my will, but I've changed it. It's going to you now. You've shown me what real character looks like." It's been about a year since everything exploded, and I figured I'd give an update since people have been asking. My parents are still struggling financially, but seem to be adapting to their new reality. Dad actually seems happier working at the hardware store than he ever was in his corporate job. Mom has found that she enjoys substitute teaching. They're living more modestly, but they're making it work. Maya is still in Vegas, apparently dating some marketing guy she met. Based on her much less frequent social media posts, she seems to finally be accepting that her modeling days are over. She's taken some online business courses, which is honestly the first practical thing I've seen her do. As for me, I've been thriving. I used some of my money to start my own tech consulting firm, and it's been incredibly successful. I've also been doing angel investing in startups, and several of those investments are paying off nicely. I bought a vacation house in Colorado and learned to ski. I've traveled to Japan, New Zealand, and Iceland. I'm living exactly the life I want to live, and I don't regret my decision for even a second. 6 months ago, I got an unexpected call from Mom. She was crying before she even said hello. "I've been going to therapy," she said through her tears. "And I've realized some things about how we treated you that I need to acknowledge." I listened as she went through what seemed like a genuine apology, not the defensive, conditional kind she'd tried before, but a real acknowledgement of the damage they'd caused. "We were so caught up in Maya's potential that we completely took you for granted," she said. "You were right there, working harder than anyone, achieving real success, and we ignored it because you didn't need us the way Maya did. But that wasn't fair to you. It wasn't right." She paused, crying harder. "I know saying sorry doesn't fix the years of hurt we caused you. I know you probably won't ever fully trust us again, but I needed you to hear that I finally understand what we did to you, and I'm ashamed of it." It was the conversation I'd wanted to have for over a decade. Did it fix our relationship? But it was something. We have limited contact now. Mom and I text occasionally about neutral topics. Dad and I might exchange a few messages a year. Maya and I haven't spoken directly since the social media war. I'm not holding my breath for some magical family reconciliation, and honestly, I'm okay with that. I've built my own chosen family of close friends and mentors. I have a life that makes me genuinely happy. Some people still think I should have just given them the money and avoided all the drama. But money was never really the issue. Respect was. And I finally demanded the respect I should have had from the beginning. Final update. Last month, something happened that I think puts a perfect cap on this whole story. I got a package from Maya with no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter and a check for $5,000. The letter said, "I know this doesn't come close to making up for everything, but it's a start. I have a real job now, digital marketing for a hotel chain. And I wanted to pay back at least some of what our parents should have spent on your college instead of my impossible dreams. I've been in therapy too, and I'm starting to understand how screwed up our family dynamics were. I was spoiled and entitled, and I let our parents sacrifice your future for my fantasies. I don't expect forgiveness, and I don't expect us to be close, but I want you to know that I'm trying to become a better person. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of everything you've accomplished, even though I never told you that before." I sat in my kitchen reading that letter and cried. Not because of the money, $5,000 is a tiny fraction of what was spent, but because it was the first time Maya had ever taken real accountability for her role in everything. I deposited the check and sent her a brief text. "Thank you for the letter and for taking responsibility. I'm glad you're building a real career now. We're not close, and we may never be." But that letter felt like the final chapter of this whole nightmare finally closing. I got my education, built my career, achieved financial independence, and ultimately earned the acknowledgement and respect I deserved. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living well. And living well is exactly what I intend to keep doing.